Welcome to another episode of the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, the show where podcasting meets purpose and profit. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and each week I sit down with powerful entrepreneurs, coaches, creators who've built thriving businesses without sacrificing the life they truly want. So today's episode is one every founder needs to hear. My special guest is George Rivera. He is a father, he is a founder, executive coach, and the creator of the transformative Buyback Time Formula. Over 3 decades of experience in direct response, e-commerce, real estate coaching. George hit a turning point himself. Despite his outward success, the hidden cost was his health and time with his family. Now, he helps 7- and 8-figure cash-rich but time-poor founders redesign their role, their team, the system, so they can buy back their time without slowing growth. So this episode is called Buyback Time, how you can get it back. You don't have to sacrifice it, and why scaling doesn't have to mean burnout. And he's going to share the systems that allow your business to thrive without you in the weeds. It's all about mindset as well. I'm sure mindset is a big part of it. So if you've built something powerful, but find yourself trapped in the business instead of leading from your zone of genius, then this conversation will change everything. So welcome to the show, George.
Thank you, Karen. Excited to be here. It's a great intro.
Look, you've been in the industry for a long while, over 30 years. Okay, there's been real estate, e-commerce, direct response marketing. What was the inspiration behind you having a little bit of a pivot, if you like, and focusing on helping founders get their time back?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just kind of go back to the beginning briefly because it makes more sense when you know the history about it. But I'm going back to the late 80s, early 90s. I know it's like when dinosaurs roamed the earth, essentially. But yeah, I was in middle school and high school in those years. And I used to play basketball. This is what I played in that era. And I played in about 40 games. And out of those 40 games, my dad only made it to one of those games. And I'm early teenage years, and it's a little confusing. Like, why won't my dad come out to see me? And I remember I'd score a basket, and I look to the empty stands, the crickets, and there's nobody there. But like my friend or my teammates would score a basket, and then their dad's there cheering them on. That's my boy, and all that. And I remember looking at another dad just loving on their son, and I remember thinking, I wish that was my dad. And that would have crushed my dad because he wasn't a bad man. He was a very successful medical doctor. He gave his life to his career, essentially sacrificing his family. And he always gave us great homes, cars, and trips to Europe. And I was the envy of my friends, the stuff that I had. That's part of my identity was this is what I bring to the table. I bring stuff. And so fast forward about 20 years, this is now 10 years ago, 2015. And my dad's starting the year, entering his 40th year of his medical practice. And gearing up for the last third of his life. His parents, my grandparents, had just passed away a couple years prior in their mid-90s. So in good health. It was like they passed away in their sleep, one after another, broken heart. I'm like, hey, sign me up for that. It's a peaceful way to go. And so my dad's thinking, I got some good longevity. But there's this phrase that God laughs at man's plans. And essentially that was not his future. He was diagnosed with cancer early on in the year, given 6 to 9 months to live. And he actually made it to 10 months. But yeah, so we made up for a lot of lost time before then. So it was a beautiful ending to his life, as tough as it was. And one of the last things he told me a couple of weeks before he passed away, like his deathbed confession, essentially, he said, don't miss Leo's games. I miss too many of yours. I said it exactly like that. And Leo's my son. At the time, he's 10 months old. He was just born right at the time my dad broke the news to me. And it was interesting thinking like gaining one, losing one. It was just a weird period in my life. When he told me that about don't miss Leo's games, flashback to those years as a child, those middle school, high school games that he wasn't there for. And it was like sweet closure to that because I thought I'd suppress that to never like revisit that experience, but then it just bubbled up. And so it was nice to know that pain didn't go unrecognized. I didn't really know where to park that, but that's like closure. And then the other side was like, oh my gosh, I am my dad all over again. I'm doing the nice homes, cars, and trips to Europe thing, but I'm absent from my household and especially my attention. And so he taught me by me watching him, essentially, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to sacrifice your family and go out and go hunt for food. And then, but you're not present for your family. And that's just how life goes. And so I was operating like that for many years. And when he said that statement, that was the first time that it opened my eyes that I remember being that kid and I didn't like it. And I'm doing the same to my son. I'm missing his first steps when he's talking. Like I'm depending on my wife to take pictures and videos and send them to me because I wasn't there. And so I was like, this has to end. But then I was like, but it'll end tomorrow because today I'm working 16-hour days. And then it's tomorrow, fast forward 3 years, and I'm still stuck in this like rut. My dad had already passed away a few years prior, and I'd scaled my business to $20 million that year. And I have a money printer. Press a button, it spits out money. As long as I'm not buying helicopters every day, like I'm stacking money, more money than I could really spend essentially. But I was hating life because everything rolled up to me. I had the world's worst org chart. I'm like right here, and then 40 people at the next line, and I'm tasking out and it coming back to me like a boomerang. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. It's quicker if I do it. And you're really robbing from the future when you have that mindset instead of properly training your people. But I so much coming in. The business at 20 million is very different from it at 2, 4, 5 million. It's just the infrastructure is completely different, threats and things you need to be aware of. And so I remember this was August of 2018. He's a dear friend now, but at the time he was my coach, my mentor. And he was in Rome. He was in Europe, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna be gone, but hit me up next week when you're back. Like he basically wanted some time away with his family, and I was fine, so I wasn't gonna bother him. But I just sent him an email because I didn't want to interfere with his trip. And I said, there are just some days that I hate this business and all this. And I don't use the word hate lightly. Like when I say it, I there's a visceral like disgust and anger towards it. And I said, hit me when you're back next week. And he just called me like 20 minutes later saying, this can't wait. This is an SOS call. And it was like almost midnight in Rome, and it's like afternoon in the States. And yeah, it was a 2-hour conversation. And basically, to sum it up in a sentence or two, it's like you got to stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you like doing and what you're good at. And I'm good at sales copy, optimization, or things that add revenue, not the admin stuff. Super important, but it shouldn't be me doing it. And then so I finally got it, like 23 years in business, and it finally clicked. A little bit of a late bloomer, but at least I got it. So we're good in that sense. But that phone call became the foundation of what I'm doing now with the Buyback Time Formula. But first, I had to do it for myself. I didn't know the name Buyback Time Formula. I didn't know frameworks or anything like that. I just knew stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you like doing. So I'm like, how do we do that? And so took about 3 years, and it took a little longer than it had to because entrepreneurs are like, nobody can do it as good as I can, or a mistake can cost 6 figures. Don't ask me how I know. And so when I reached the pinnacle of success or transformation, I should say, starting this, the business grew to near $50 million. So it more than doubled. But now I'm living a semi-retired lifestyle. I'm not working more than 30 hours a week. And do fires still happen? Yes, but somebody else is putting it out. There's proper frameworks and structure to handle that. It's not magic or wishful thinking. It's an intentional strategy. And yeah, so what has this meant to my son, Leo? Because remember, my dad said, don't miss Leo's games. He meant literally don't miss his games, but also don't miss out on his life. And so never miss any of his games. He's homeschooled. He travels with us. I taught him how to negotiate real estate at 8 years old. To current day now, he has a podcast. He's almost 11. It's Leo Interviews on YouTube, if anybody wants to see it. It's a legit podcast. It's not just for kids. And yeah, he just travels with us everywhere, joins us on our adventures. And so to come to current day, over the last couple years, I'd say I've had different friends in different circles all tell me, like, you need to teach people how you do this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not really a coach. I just do this stuff. And so I'm like, do I teach people how to travel, how to do, like, where do I start? And I just parked the idea. And then over the last 6, 7 months, this whole concept of there's these frameworks that you can implement to remove people from being the bottleneck to then do whatever they want with their time. But I'm a father first, family first perspective. So I know there's a lot of dads like me, like the me of 10 years ago, cash rich, time poor, that are stuck in what I call the founder prison. You didn't build it on purpose. It just scales there. And all of a sudden, I have to be here because I got to maintain this lifestyle and doing it for the family, even though the family maybe never asked for it. But try to roll back the lifestyle stuff. That's not fun either. So there's all this pressure that you've built upon yourself to maintain this identity as a hustler and a provider. And it's just a big lie that we tell ourselves that I'm the only one that can do it. So you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith, not magic or wishful thinking, but putting in proper frameworks and following a structure so that you can buy your time back and then give it to the people that need it the most. In my case, it's my family. So I just threw a lot out there. So wherever you want to pick it up from.
Love that. And what do you think is the sort of biggest issue? Because it does seem to be coming back to this need to control everything. And it's very difficult. And I get it. I suppose if you've built something from scratch and you've grown it to be able to delegate, which is what you're going to need to do, is it this mindset thing about this internal need to control absolutely everything that people are afraid to let go of? Or what else is going on there?
Yeah, it's the mindset that only I can control this and nobody else can do it just as good. And I used to believe that, and almost like it was reaffirmed because I was poorly delegating out. So of course it wasn't being done correct. It's almost like I had to go to the root of the issue, is learn proper delegation, and then you will see that as long as they can follow the instructions and you do it properly, and you have to transfer ownership and you have to show them what the outcome looks like and give them the liberty to improve upon it. Because that's another thing too, is like there's a little bit of arrogance in there too, or at least I'll speak for myself. It's I'm the only one that can do this. And it's like, how arrogant of me to think that. For example, let's say if I consider myself 100% at this one task, although I don't think we ever are, but that's what I tell myself. I'm perfect at this. And let's say somebody gets to 80%. That's typically good enough, right? You can live with maybe minimal breakage there potentially. But what I see is when I step out of the way, they take what I call their 80% to 120, and they're way better than I ever was. So like, how arrogant of me to think that I was just like holding on to this thing. And so, yeah, there's a bit of an identity shift that needs to occur. And it doesn't really happen overnight, but I think when people like get a small taste of buying their time back, you become addicted to it and you're like, what else can I do? And then you just want to stay focused on the things that you do best, which for any business owner, I believe it's strategic connections, networks, obviously networking, but it depends on what their business is. Like for me, I was in e-commerce. So launching new offers, identifying new markets to go into. Those are big needle moving activities, not maintaining merchant accounts and maintaining customer support. Important? Yes. It shouldn't be me doing it.
So it sounds like also it is hiring the right people then, being able to delegate, to find. And is that quite a scary thing to do, to outsource to the people who do have the level of experience or the level of expertise that you need for that particular role? So how do you do this? So you work with other founders, or not necessarily just the founders, but people who are looking to still scale their business but actually get their time back. So you must have a particular process. So how are you doing that and enabling them to actually live the life that really, I'm sure that was the goal when they started out, wasn't it? And then they got a little bit caught up in this never-ending hamster wheel.
Absolutely. And if you find yourself there, no judgment. I was the king of that place and I stayed there way too much longer than I had to be. And yeah, we build this business because it's doing it for the family, we're doing it for freedom, and all of a sudden we find ourselves trapped. And yeah, I can totally relate to that. And so the first step is them recognizing that they're in that position and that they want to do something about it. And the first step, once we're working together, is we do what's called a calendar audit, or a time audit, or a freedom audit. It's just an audit. It's a review of what you've been doing most recently. Now, when I say that, and if you're like me of 10 years ago, I would have said, okay, I have a calendar. I can see my past calls, but it's not like I'm logging everything in great detail. So start now. And let's forget the past if you're not a great detailed calendar keeper of your time and tasks. So start now and detail everything you do, from brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, writing anything down, because if you start criticizing or judging, is this something I should write down, yes or no, then you start missing out on potential opportunities because you train yourself to not like care about that one certain thing. So I just write everything down, like you're as if you have a camera following you all day long, essentially documenting what you do. In the first 2 or 3 days, you'll start to identify patterns, but I like to say give it a week minimum. For best results, give it 2 weeks. And then you're going to want to realize or ask yourself, what is an hour of my time worth? I'll tell you, in my position, at minimum, it's $1,000 an hour. It could be $10,000 an hour plus. That's the value that I give myself. So I look at all of my tasks that I've documented over the last couple of weeks, and I see what can I get off my plate that doesn't equate anywhere near my hourly value. So in my case, as an example, when I first did this, I realized that I was working anywhere as little as 60 hours a week, upwards to 80, sometimes 90. So I'm awake, I'm working. That's essentially was my life. And I identified that 40 hours a week I was spending on $50 an hour or less tasks. And so not a mathematician, but quick math. 40 hours a week times $50 USD an hour is $2,000 a week. So for $2,000, which remember I had my little money printer there, I could have paid for that in minutes essentially in those days. And so I could have bought back half at least of my work week. And so once I finally reached the pinnacle of that, I was able to now only work between 20 and 30 hours a week. Again, sometimes I was off the grid for a while and nothing fell apart, so that's great. But my 20 or 30 hours a week are now focused on high impact activities like networking with people that can help move the needle, strategic relationships, new offers, looking in my funnels for revenue growth opportunities and optimizations. Again, not the nitty gritty admin stuff. Important, yes, but I shouldn't be doing it. And so the old days, I was like doing all of it. So my high dollar revenue activities were on burnt out, frustrated, and sometimes I probably never put all the focus and attention on it that I could have. But now with all of that stuff off of my plate, it's almost like supercharging the hours that I do work and making them even more efficient. So this is how you get more time back and double your business. If you just say it, it's like counterintuitive, like how that doesn't make sense. It's almost like it should go down. And it's like, yeah, if you don't outsource and delegate properly, that's the likely case. But when you implement frameworks to take the heavy lifting off your shoulders, that's how you double your business and essentially double your time or your freedom. Yeah.
And what do you think is, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are doing this, where is the fear coming from, do you think, really? Because I don't know what is going on. Maybe we've almost been conditioned to believe that this thing, we've got to work hard, right? We've got to, and I do believe that some people almost wear it as a badge of honor. I'm working 60 hours, 80 hours a week in my business. Whereas, like you just said, when you do the math, and think, hang on a minute, that's not really the best use of my time doing this work. With the amount of money coming in, I can easily spend that money with somebody who is an expert at that one particular thing. And then I can be freed up, like you say, you're not doing the actual real money-making jobs, if you like, when you're in the best state that you can be, because you're burnt out, because you've been doing all this other stuff. So something's going on, because it's not unusual. There's a lot of people that sort of fall into this. So where do you think the real fear is coming from?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm sure it's different for everybody. But I know in my case, it was like, especially in the financial area. So like a vendor mistake could have cost my business at the time. It's a six-figure mistake. And so there's all this pressure to get it right. So like, for example, one of my vendors would bill me on a performance basis. And so we were doing thousands of sales per day. So let's just say if they bill for say 3,000 sales, I need to go into my CRM and validate that those sales are legitimate, not fraudulent, and no funny business. Just because there could be some fraudulence doesn't mean that they're fraudulent, but it could be that there's fraudsters that will use their link to frame them or position them. It's happened to me before. That's why it's okay, I've got to validate this. And yes, super important, but somebody else who maybe they're not $1,000 an hour plus type person, it could be a well-paid $30 to $50 an hour person who has the wisdom and judgment to cross-reference standard operating procedure. But I just didn't have those processes in place, and it ended up falling on me. I had people to do it. I had an accounting team, but I didn't want to give up the reins because I had this fear. Maybe it's the PTSD, I forget the acronym, but it's traumatic, and it's a disorder. I think I got two of those words. Maybe I'm missing one, stress. I just got it in the wrong order. Yeah. All of that would come upon me. So that's probably the biggest one. I get it. If that's the last thing they give up, then I can relate because that was me. But once I gave it up, the sense of freedom that first you get all this time back and you have to protect the time that you've won back too, because as entrepreneurs, it's almost changing your identity. I'm a worker, I'm a hustler. What else can I do? And it's now you're adding more on your plate. We fought so hard to get your time back. Let's not do that. And so I'm very intentional about reconnecting with your family, coming back into the home, because I'm a man, so I'll speak from a man's perspective. But on average, women are thinking for 2 years before they leave their husband or divorce them. And so I know there's a lot of men, again, like me 10 years ago, who are in that position where things aren't really great at home. And even though it feels like things are quiet and silent, it might not be the peace that you think it is. It could be that you've just trained your family that, hey, if I say I'm going to be there, I'm likely not going to be there, because I was the poster boy for canceling on things that I committed to. And so part of my program is prioritizing family events, things that are important to your family, just as important on your calendar as your business stuff. Like, for example, like a
Mm.
Zoom call. If I have a Zoom call business meeting, I'm making that meeting unless I get hit by a bus. And I haven't been hit by a bus yet, so I'm 100% on that.
All is
But
well.
yes, but on the family side, and again, the old me would schedule like, oh, here's a game, but it's tentative. Like if something else comes up, that's the first thing to get wiped off because that's just business takes priority. Now, for my attitude and what I teach others is when it's there, you are respecting
It's
that as
there.
much as if it's any business meeting. And it's just a mind shift thing. You have the option to remove it, obviously, but you have to treat it as if it's set in stone, just like you do your business meetings. And that's how you show your family that you matter to me through your actions, not the, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll make it up next time, and next time never comes. Again, don't ask me how I know that.
Ah, I love that. And if more people, at the end of the day, if that happened in just general business with employees, but what you're talking about is you can do this as the founder of your business. It starts with you, and then I'm sure it trickle. Does this trickle back into the people that actually work for you too?
Absolutely, it does. Because when I was doing it the wrong way, back when I had the world's worst org chart, me and 40 people, and it would just bounce back up to me, and I would say, don't worry, I got it. I'm training them that, hey, you know what? George is going to give us something, but when we don't know, we'll just let him finish it off. And so it wasn't their fault. I was training them. And then I had these people on payroll that sort of like used me as the finisher. They started off, and then, of course, they'd come to me and finish it. And now when I'm transferring ownership and I'm showing them what finished and complete looks like, and then I give them the liberty to make it even better. Like that's part of the whole arrogant thing is, hey, I'm not the best at doing this. Here's my way to do it. Start with my way, but you're an intelligent person. If you could find a way to make this more efficient, I'm all ears and I give you the liberty to do that.
Brilliant. There you go. And that sort of opens things up for a much healthier working environment. And you're giving them the, what's the word I'm looking for? You're giving them permission, if you like, to get a little bit more creative and try to improve things rather than having this sort of place where people are just doing what they're told and they're not thinking outside the box, because you're encouraging creativity and for people to do better than the job that you were doing. You're allowing them to do that. So it makes a lot of sense. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are in that position. They might not even be in that level of seven-figure business owners. They might be even when they're coming up, because I think that's the thing. Sometimes they can feel that everything is on them to do everything because they might not be in that financial position to hire out. But the way I see it, you've got to start as you mean to go on. So I'm sure there are things that can be outsourced as early as possible so that you can grow and you can scale. So for you, look, if there are people out there that are thinking, maybe they're afraid to make that decision, or they're thinking about what kind of things can I outsource out, what should the listeners do next? How can they find out more, George?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find more at buybacktimeformula.com. And there I have a link to my book. It's 128 pages. It's a physical book. And it's free, just cover shipping, but you also get a digital download there. And I pour everything I know about buying back time in that book. I know there's other marketers, and no judgment on those strategies, but they'll put like little nuggets and then, hey, you want more? Here's a link to buy the secrets elsewhere. I'm like, no, I put it all in there. My contact information is there for anybody who, again, like me, cash rich time poor 10 years ago, who would have paid a mini fortune to collapse the time it took me from breaking out of my founder's prison to freedom so I can pour into my son. The strategies, the frameworks are all there, along with appropriate examples so people know how to implement them. But again, to be reached if somebody needs to as well.
Fantastic. And it's not just your son that has a podcast. You have a podcast as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a few episodes. We're still setting up the behind the scenes parts of it to start publishing it. It's called The Profitable Dad. But yeah, we're still figuring out we're fleshing out the final bones of the structure for that.
Brilliant. And so what made you make the decision to launch your own podcast? You've been guesting. Have you been guesting for a while? What's been your biggest win from being on a podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been guesting here. So this whole thing's been 6-ish months old. So I'd say the last 3 months or so has been a real focus and intense on the podcasting route for the purpose of just getting exposure, getting the conversation out there. Also for like potential clients who are researching me, my name comes up. It gives great authority. It also collapses the time that it takes for maybe a potential client to trust you and want to hire you, because it's almost like having conversations on autopilot as opposed to the old way of, hey, let's get on a call and let's do 10 calls before you feel comfortable to move on. And hey, some people still like it old school like that. But in today's age where you can do your own research and then like park in a place and hey, let's see what else this person has. Podcasting and guesting specifically has been a great way to get the word out and get some notoriety. And like I said, great authority.
Ah, fantastic. There you go. You heard it from George himself. And so, guys, look, George, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And guys, if you're driving or you're in the shower whilst you're listening to this, you can't go straight to his link. So don't worry. All of George's details will be in the show notes. So resort back to those. And I love that. And yes, guesting, I believe, is just probably the quickest way, because it's free too. So guys, if you're a coach or consultant and you're tired chasing leads or doing launches or doing sales calls that go nowhere, listen up. What if your next high ticket client was already listening to someone else's podcast and all you had to do was show up and talk? And that's exactly what I help you do inside the Podcast Profits Funnel. This is normally exclusively for paid clients, but for you guys, as my loyal listeners, this is actually free. So you can go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. There is a caveat to it. Yes, it's free, but you've only got 5 days to complete it. Do the simple assignments and you'll get access to the reward video. Thank you so much for your time. And I'll be back next week with the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're